Hi, I'm Hardik and I'm building a data platform for AI called Seneca. I would argue that sycophancy, the ability to talk to, you know, people as if you're sucking up to them, basically, is a necessary evil and should not be phased out. I say here's my argument. I think any non-fact based conversational model is more human than a fact based conversational model that purely relies on reasoning chains, truth, and tool calling, web search, whatnot to come to a decision that it then relays out. Why is that? Humans inherently are truth seeking models, but the way we communicate is not truth obtaining, right? So let's say if I am talking to you, the likelihood of me knowing X and portraying my X to you as exactly X is lower compared to me pulling X from my internal data storage, my brain, and then pushing it out as Y, which is a more approachable version of X for you, right? So that is how communication works. That is the transfer of information that I have to a medium, speech, text, whatever, through a medium rather, to you in a medium that you understand, right? So languages are a part of that, but also the traversal of information is a larger part of that. Any AI model that tries to seek out truth in completeness, right? So any model that tries to seek out the objective truth will one never actually be a competent model because of the subjectivity that comes with human conversation. That's one. But also two, will never be a good business model to approach for any company because it is just not the way humans are trained to communicate and is not the way we're trained to accept and digest information, right? And so why does this matter? And is there a threshold for this? Both of them, yes. Yeah. So why does it matter? First of all, I think it matters largely because as we're approaching uh, the threshold where models start becoming more of an ethical question compared to a technical, side project of sorts. So the industry has well exceeded what one would call a, hype bubble. It is still a lot of hype and it's still a bubble, but it's exceeded the point where it's the NFT of 2025, right? It's much more mature, it's a proven technology. So, and we're constantly approaching the point where people are using AI not just for technical stuff. It's not only an API. In fact, it's, I think, less than 5% of the use case for normal people is an API, but it's more of, a human delivered to you on your mobile phone or on your Mac or on your laptop. And so when that happens, models are and companies are on the surface incentivized to make models truth seeking, right? So it sells perfectly that models who search the internet, models who are aware of what's going on in the world, models who are not biased, models who will only refer to, say, research papers, anything of that sort sells really well. But when it is implemented in a large language model, it is one, very hard to implement, but two, not the approached mechanism through which humans would usually conversate. So an example of that is, let's say I was to give you an A/B test where one was super objective, insight into, let's say, what the latest political news is, for example, right? Or what the latest political inklings are, in the sense, who do you think is going to win XYZ election? Why is that? Why would that be the case? Objectively, there must be several research papers that highlight that would point out nuances, uh, point out nitpicks that would help you reach a granular decision objectively. But and the B test there is a simple reasoning model that pulls out the previous conversation history, tries to discern whether you're a liberal conservative, looks at the facts for sure, but then tries to come up with something like, this is where the media is inkling at, this is where you are. I think combined with this, I think I'd say this is what the political results look like. Serve to you, right? So there's still some objectivity there, but which of those two do you think is the better, more marketable model in the real world? Definitely the second one, because people would prefer that any day of the week over something that gives them the completely objective answer. And this is true for politics, this is true for philosophy, this is true for ethics, this is to some extent also true for topics like physics, where objective answer, which is the most granular, the best understood, the most you know most complete answer, so the concept of completeness in mathematics and physics, will not be digestible to every one of those users, right? So there is some level of subjectivity, some level of bias that will come into the conversation when you're talking about truth seeking models. And why do I point this out, right? Why do I point this out? I'm pointing this out because as we're approaching towards AGI, as we're approaching towards ASI is a pipe dream for all I know, but AGI is definitely something that is becoming a more tangible goal in the next decade. We, I believe, should not be concerned with the truth seeking, the truth objectivity of models, as we are about the conversational part of models, right? Is there a way to perfect the human agent communication to an extent where data is more of a tool for an answer rather than the answer in and of itself, right? So let's say I presently am thinking about my own company, Seneca, right? A model that has access to a RAG of my brain, let's say a data lake which has Hardik as an abstraction on the internet or on a vector store somewhere, will have the ability to pull that out, give me a slightly biased, sometimes very biased insight into what my what my startup is doing, where I'm at, what the next steps are. If I need a morale boost, do I need that? If I need a new investor, a seed round, do I need that? If I need a co-founder, do I need that? If I need a founding engineer, do I need that? All of that bullshit. So is that the better model that we can perfect versus something that is still a chat-based, truth-seeking model that, is one, harder to use, and two, is also not the most approachable model for most people. And even if you think you want a truth-seeking model, chances are you don't. Because the objective is not to create a fact base that is 100% true 100% of the time. The objective is to create a human who is basically inside you. So I mean, that sounds wrong, but a human that has access to everything that you do and has a data store large enough so that it has access to n number of people just like you. This is throughout history, through literature, through the modern world, through contemporaries of yours, through people in your age group, and has the added benefit of faster processing, better data, better analysis, more time, more training data, for example, and then utilizes that to give you something that makes sense to you, right? So I think that is the problem. So I think AI sycophancy in and of itself is the least of our concerns as of now. In fact, if anything, it's a good thing that AI models are hallucinating, not hallucinating per se, but uh, let's say dialing down the truth seeking or truth parsing uh, that they're presently doing in lieu of making their insights, making their output more accessible to people like you and me, right? Or everybody, in fact, not just you and me. Cool. I think that's a bunch of thoughts. Thank you.